The year is 1815. After a crushing defeat by the powers of Europe, Napoleon Bonaparte was forced to abdicate and was exiled to the small Mediterranean island of Elba. While he was on the island, Louis XVIII was placed in power in France, restoring the Bourbon monarchy. He also learned that the French would gladly welcome his return. The French fought a revolution to overthrow the monarchy around 26 years ago. They were not very happy upon his return. At the same time, the Congress of Vienna was taking place between the very powers that disposed of Napoleon back in 1814. They were conflicted about the future of Europe and were in dispute. After only being on Elba for 300 days, Napoleon escaped and returned to France. Upon his return, the people and troops began rallying to his cause, including the troops that were sent to arrest him, one of which was Marshal Ney, who previously claimed that Napoleon should be arrested.
If you want to kill your emperor, here I am.
Fire! Vive l'empereur!
The Congress of Vienna quickly responded to Napoleon by declaring him an outlaw. The Seventh Coalition was formed and they quickly began mobilizing an army. Napoleon knew that he had to act fast. If he didn't, the coalition would launch a devastating coordinated attack into France. He planned winning a quick victory and then negotiated peace while he has the position of superiority. British and Prussian armies were stationed close to the northeastern border of France. The British-led Allied army was under the command of the Duke of Wellington. The Prussian army was under the command of Prince Blucher. Napoleon decided to attack these two armies because they were the easiest reach. Napoleon's army had numerical superiority against each individual army, but if they combined, Napoleon would be vastly outnumbered. This is why he had to try and keep the two armies separate. Napoleon's army was composed of veteran troops who were fiercely loyal to Napoleon. Wellington, on the other hand, claimed that he had an infamous army, very weak and ill-equipped, and a very inexperienced staff. Under his command were 25,000 British troops, 17,000 Dutch and Belgian troops, 11,000 from Hanover, 6,000 from Brunswick, and 3,000 from Nassau. June 15, 1815, Napoleon invades the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The French crossed the border near Charleroi with the hopes of dividing the two armies.
Napoleon used many of Sun Tzu's strategies, one of which was keeping the enemy divided. Sun Tzu said in The Art of War, if the enemy is united, divide them. Napoleon knew that he could not defeat all the coalition armies if they combined. He would be vastly outnumbered. That's why, if he wanted to achieve victory, he would have had to defeat the armies one by one.
On June 16th, Napoleon sent his main force to attack the bulk of the Persian army at the village of Ligny with his main force, while at the same time, a portion of the French L'Armée du Nord under Marshal Ney attacked the Allied army at the Battle of Quatre Bras. Napoleon won the Battle of Ligny, but was unsuccessful in his goal of crushing the Prussian army. This will prove to be a vital problem during the Battle of Waterloo. Blucher's army retreated from the battle, and although Wellington was winning at Quatre Bras, he was forced to retreat with his ally. On June 17th, Napoleon united with Ney and tried to engage Wellington, but the muddy ground and late start forced Napoleon to only pursue him. Napoleon sent Grouchy, who was in command of the right wing, to pursue the retreating Prussian army. Wellington received assurance that Blucher, who was bruised from his horse falling on him during Ligny, would be able to support his army during the conclusive battle. At that, Wellington decided to hold at Waterloo while Napoleon was approaching. Wellington chose the terrain carefully. He deployed his troops on a ridge, which protects his troops from French artillery. The terrains were also very different from the traditional battlefield. It had a network of small road, hedges, and a bunch of little houses scattered in between the armies. On Wellington's right flank was the chateau of Hougoumont Farm, which was held by the Coldstream and 3rd Guard. The La Haye-Saint Farm was anchored in the center, and Papelotte Farm on his left flank. Both were defended by elite troops. June 18, 1815, the battle begins. Grouchy's force continued to pursue the Prussians. Grouchy, however, was unable to prevent Blucher from reaching Wavre, where they had already reinforced the Allied army. At Waterloo, Napoleon draws up his forces on the southern ridge. He held off his attack until midday as he waits for the wet ground to dry from the previous night's weather. This decision will prove to be a mistake later on. At around 11:35 a.m., Napoleon ordered a feint attack on Hougoumont. He considered it of secondary importance. The goal of the attack was so that Wellington would send his reserves to support his right flank at Hougoumont, leaving his center weak, at which Napoleon would perform a major blow. He believed that Wellington's center and La Haye-Saint was the main importance. The British and Germans held off the French attack at Hougoumont. The French troops pushed through the gate, but it closed behind them. All the French soldiers trapped were slaughtered. Wellington believed this to be the decisive moment of the battle. At around 12 o'clock, French artillery pounded the Allied lines, although most of the soldiers were protected from lying down on the ridge. At 1:30, 17,000 French infantry began the assault of the Allied center and left flanks. As they approached the top of the ridge, they were met with disciplined volleys and a bayonet charge. General Sir Thomas Picton led the charge, but he took a bullet through the head, costing him his life. It will follow by a charge of British heavy cavalry. The French troops break under the thunder of the cavalry. The British cav managed to capture 2 of the notorious Eagle standards. The British cavalry pursued the retreating French infantry, but they extended too far. Their horses get tired and scattered. They are then countercharged by French cavalry. They suffer terrible loss and even lost Major General Sir William Ponsonby, commander of the Union Brigade. At around 4 p.m., Marshal Ney thought the Allies were retreating. He commands a massive cavalry charge to secure victory, but he was wrong. The Allies were not retreating. Instead, they formed into square formation, a tactic extremely useful in defending cavalry charges. Since the French couldn't penetrate these squares, Ney's attack fails with serious losses. Blucher's Prussian army finally arrived, and they take the village of Planchenoit. Napoleon's flank is threatened, and he is forced to send his elite reserve, the Young Guard, to protect it and push the Prussians out of Planchenoit. At 6 p.m., the French finally capture La Haie-Sainte, putting Napoleon in control of the center of the battlefield. The French are now able to push up artillery to bombard the Allied lines from a closer range. The batteries tear through the Allies, who are still in square formation. It is easy to hit the tightly packed troops, and the Allies begin to take a lot of casualties. Napoleon, beginning to feel the pressure from the Prussians, sent the most elite troops to stop them. These troops are the most feared regiment in Europe at the time and were usually only used as a last resort. They are the Imperial Guard. At 7:30 p.m., 3,000 Imperial Guard push up through the center. Wellington's foot guard meet the French guards and they trade brutal musket fire. The British foot fix bayonets and the Imperial Guards begin to waver. The Imperial Guards eventually rout, which was a major blow to Napoleon. As the French guards retreat, Wellington is filled with a sense of victory. He orders a general advance while the Prussians manage to recapture Planchenoit. The French army is filled with fear and there is a chain rout among the line. The whole army begins to flee except for the elite unit, the Old Guard. They perform a heroic last stand to allow the Emperor to escape, but it was very costly. Napoleon, however, made no attempt to rally the army. He didn't try to conduct an organized retreat. He just rode for his life all the way back to Paris. There are some reports that claim Napoleon fled from the battlefield with tears rolling down his face.
At the end of the Battle of Waterloo, there were claims that Napoleon, as he was leaving the battlefield, was in tears. Right? Whether this is actually true or not, what was true is that at the end of the battle, Napoleon was a broken man. He never returned to the battlefield, and he died relatively shortly after this, unlike when he escaped from Elba and returned to France and was triumphantly made the Emperor of France within 4 days of his return from Elba. This was the final note, which is why the term "this may be your Waterloo" or "remember Waterloo" lives on in history till to this day.
The battle was over. Wellington and Blucher meet to congratulate each other on their victory. 1/4 of the Allied army, 15,000 men to be exact, were lost in the battle. The Prussians lost 7,000 men. The casualties of the French army were around 25,000 dead and wounded and many more taken prisoner. Napoleon eventually surrendered to the British. They exiled him to the Atlantic island of St. Helena, where he spent the rest of his days. The battle saw the end of 26 brutal years of war in Europe. It ushered in an era of peace up until the Crimean War in 1854. The Battle of Waterloo was one of the most influential battles in history. Hopefully it will forever be remembered so that we never repeat it.